Hi, this is Chris Madsen. I'm going to give you a very basic introduction for Stata. This is really for people who haven't used it before, and I'll walk you through the various windows and the ways that you can interact with the program. So let's open Stata. And we can see that there's the menu up at the top. There are some icons here in this gray bar. And then there are a few windows, which are mostly empty right now. We're going to talk about each one. But first, let's use our drop-down menu to open a file. So I'll go to File, Open, and then I'm going to click on this data file. I'm already in the folder I need to be in, and I know I'm going to open data for our intro session. So the first thing I notice is here, the window on the upper left, which is the review window, now has a command in it. And that's exactly what our review window does. It actually keeps track of all the commands that we ask Stata to execute. And you'll notice that the actual command language to open data in the Stata file format is use. So it's use followed by the name of the data set. On the top right window, my variable window, now we see a list of variables. This is a small data set, so there's only a few. And you can also see the labels that I've given them, and this just helps me remember what each of the variables stands for. On the bottom right here is the properties, and this tells me both about my data set, and if I click on a variable, it tells me a little bit more about that variable. So now here I see this is the unique ID, and type is byte. That just means that an integer. Sex, for example, is a string variable, and I can tell by looking at the str under the type. There are a few different ways to get a snapshot of our data. So one is looking at these variables, but I can also literally look at the data set as Stata sees it by clicking on this icon here. Let's click on Data Browser. This opens a new window, the Data Editor. And Data Editor has two modes. Browse, which protects the data. I can't make changes when I'm in this mode, but I can toggle into edit mode if I wanted to actually be able to go in and change the values of cells. I try never to make changes that way because I wouldn't want to accidentally change a master data set, so we'll cancel and we'll just keep looking at this in browse mode. So first, you're probably going to notice that there are different colors showing up here. So the variable ID, education, weight in kilograms, and these other variables all show up in black font, and that's because they're numbers, and Stata recognizes them as numbers. It's storing them very simply as numbers too. Here, if I go down to fasting blood glucose, this FBG, I can see 86 is what's stored, and I also see 86 when I look in this cell. The red variables, sex and motive, those are string variables. So Stata shows string variables in red. And if I click over here on male, I see that what Stata stores is actually just the text male. Now, these blue variables, employ and marital, these are actually numbers, but they're categorical variables, and I've already given Stata labels for each of the categories. You'll do this in your first exercise, so you'll know how to do it as well. So Stata stores a number, and you can see this here when I click on part-time. Stata is storing the number 6, but it's showing me the label that I've actually given it. And what I've told it is, if you see a number 6, I want you to show me the label part-time. And I've said, if you see the number 7, I want you to show me the label full-time. Same thing for married and living with a partner. Each one of these labels is actually associated with the underlying number. The other thing to notice before we close the data editor window is that Stata deals with missing values differently for strings and for numbers. So over here in sex, we can see that participant 8 doesn't have, is missing the value for sex. And up in this content window, I see, oh, Stata is just storing this as a blank. There's nothing there. But if it's missing a number, a numeric value, so for example, over here in fasting blood glucose, variable FBG, This participant, number 5, is missing the value for fasting blood glucose, and it shows up as a period. So the only thing to remember is when you're using if statements in Stata, you'll need to indicate missing number variables by a period, okay? And that's just Stata's way of dealing with missing, and that's true for many other statistical software packages as well. So let's close this and let's look at 3 other ways to quickly summarize your data or get a snapshot of your data. First is the command describe, and I'm actually going to type that directly in the command window. So we've used pull-down menus, we've clicked on icons, and we can also type directly into the command window. So I'll type describe and hit enter. And Stata is going to give me a quick summary of my data set. So I can see actually where the file is located and what the name of the file is up here. And I can see the total number of observations. We have 30, and there are 11 variables. It also shows the type of each variable. And you may remember too when we had the data editor window open that employee and marital, which showed up as blue, actually had labels. You can see what those labels are called here. So another way of getting a snapshot is to use the command codebook. We'll type that into the command window as well and hit return. And for each of the variables, I'll scroll up to our first variable, to ID. For each of the variables, codebook gives us the range of that variable, the number of unique values, whether or not there's any missing, a mean and standard deviation, as well as percentiles, which can be very helpful. Summarize, another snapshot command, gives us similar information. It's really only useful for numeric variables. You can see that sex and motive, which are strings, don't have any useful information, but it's a nice compact format for seeing the range, mean, and standard deviation for numeric variables. Lastly, I just want to show you how to get to the do file. You actually have another video on creating and using do files, but this icon here, if we click it, opens up a new blank do file. And remember, do files will be your friend this semester. That's it for getting started in Stata. Thanks for watching.